I'm going to do a 2-round Superflex PPR mock draft combining the 2023 class with the 2022 class, and I'm going to add in the 2024 class here. Let's go ahead and start here with the 101. This one is easy. Throw in the 24 class, throw in the 2022 rookie class. I don't care. It's Bijan Robinson. He's far and away the 101. 102, it's going to go to a little bit of the proven side of things here. I'm going to go with Kenneth Walker, the running back here for Seattle. Now, Kenneth Walker was my running back one heading into last year, and he did nothing to sway me against that. Walker finished as running back 18 in 2022, despite the fact that he only had legit touches in about 10 games. We saw excellent touchdown potential. And remember, we had low expectations of this Seattle offense. When you watch Seattle play, when Kenneth Walker was on the field, the team looked that much better. The offense looked that much more explosive. I'm excited for what Kenneth Walker can do heading into the 2023 NFL season. Now, before we head into the 103 pick here, I want to make a quick clarification. I'm doing this draft, the value that I place on these players right now, and I'm primarily working off of my Dynasty, Devy, rookie rankings, all of which, by the way, are available at patreon.com/rookiebigboard if you want to check out more of my work and get access to my current rookie rankings as well as my full Devy and Dynasty rankings. All right, 103 here. I'm going to go with Chris Olave. Now, I know folks might be interested in a different running back from the 2022 class with this 103 pick, but I'm a big fan of Olave. He was my wide receiver one going into last season, and that was not a popular pick, but I think consensus has come along on Chris Olave. Finishes the wide receiver 25 in PPR formats last year. What I love is the targets. 119 targets, was second among all rookie wide receivers last year, and I think the trajectory is only going up. 119 feels like the floor. We're expecting better quarterback play in New Orleans here. We're expecting overall a more efficient offense. Hopefully, they get a weapon there to kind of pull some defensive coverage off of Chris Olave. Regardless, here, I'm excited for his projection moving forward. I think we have a wide receiver one in Dynasty on our hands. 104 is the aforementioned Breece Hall. All right, Breece Hall had a fantastic season. If we're being honest here, looking at the numbers, a full season of Breece Hall, he likely would have outscored Kenneth Walker. He was definitely on pace to do that. So if you still have Breece Hall over Kenneth Walker, no knock on you, but I started with Walker over Hall. Now we have to weigh that injury, right? And how he's going to bounce back from that. I hope he comes back and is 100%, but that's a variable we have to realistically factor in. But what are we balancing that with? Breece Hall finished as running back 8 in points per game in PPR formats last year. He had 31 targets in just 7 games. That's a number that I love. Of course, if the running back is contributing to the passing game, that gives him a major boost. So definitely still a lot to like with Breece Hall. And now we're going to dip our toes into the 2024 class. So yes, at pick 105, I'm taking Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr., 6'3", 202, out of Ohio State, wide receiver, very athletic, consistent pass catcher. He is technically refined, and yes, he is the son of Marvin Harrison, NFL great. Last season, Marvin Harrison Jr. had 1,263 receiving yards, 77 receptions, 14 touchdowns in 13 games for Ohio State. With Jackson Smith-Njigba suffering an injury, it really was the Marvin Harrison show, as well as Emeka Egbuka, and we're going to get to that Ohio State wide receiver here in a few picks. But first, we're going to go back to the 2023 class here, and we're going to go with Bryce Young. Bryce Young here is the highest rated quarterback for me pretty easily in the 2023 class. I'm just going to drop a spoiler here comparing 2023 to 2022. We are not going to talk about a quarterback here in the 2022 class. So I think that's something we've forgotten about, when we're talking about the strength of the 2023 class relative to last year. It feels like we've already forgotten about the fact that Kenny Pickett was the most valuable quarterback coming out of last class, and he is not coming in close to where I have Bryce Young here in this mock draft. 107, we're going back to last year's rookies here, the 2022 class, and I'm going with Drake London, wide receiver here for the Falcons. Now, London did finish as wide receiver 31. on 117 targets. I love that target number here. What I specifically am excited about with Drake London is, of course, his profile, athletic, big body, good hands here, but he improved at the end of the season. His targets went up, his touchdowns went up. So he was clicking there with Desmond Ridder. I know there's a lot of opportunity for the quarterback to play to improve externally. Lamar Jackson, maybe they end up going for one of these other guys. But I also think that Drake London is going to be just fine if he's riding it out here with Desmond Ridder next season. If you look at the current Atlanta depth chart, right, it's really just Drake London and Kyle Pitts as guys that are going to have significant targets in the passing game, especially if Olamide Zaccheaus, who is an unrestricted free agent, does not return to Atlanta. And it doesn't seem like the Falcons are in a position to invest high draft capital on a wide receiver or another tight end in this year's draft. So there should be plenty of targets. The projection is heading up here for Drake London. And at 108, probably a lot of folks are frustrated that he went behind London and Olave, but I am going to go with Garrett Wilson here at 108. Garrett Wilson was wide receiver 21 on the season, and he did win Rookie of the Year. So the NFL definitely recognized him as a standout, as we should. The huge number here is 147 targets for Garrett Wilson. The huge question mark is going to be, what's his trajectory? I do feel like there's going to be some regression on those targets. Will the quarterback play improve? Perhaps. Aaron Rodgers gets there, we're excited. Somebody else gets there, maybe we're not as excited. There's a lot of variables going on here. Nonetheless, 108 here. Garrett Wilson definitely still valuable in terms of this mock draft simulation. All right, next up here, we're going back to the 2023 class. We're talking about Alabama running back Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, I do expect a year from now that we're going to be talking about Jahmyr Gibbs in the same tier as we're talking about Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall. We might even have him ranked higher. But right now, I'm using my current today rankings, right? And so whenever you're trying to project forward, there's volatility and you have to adjust for that in the rankings. Nonetheless, here, Gibbs has tremendous upside. 110. We're going to go to the 2024 class. We're going to pick out a quarterback. It's going to be Caleb Williams out of USC. Caleb Williams is an exciting dual threat quarterback, 6'1", 218. He has a great arm here. He's a gunslinger. He's an improviser, and he has great mobility as well. He can beat the defense with his legs just as much as he can with his arm. He is the reigning Heisman champion here in his first season with the USC Trojans. 4,537 passing yards, a 42-5 touchdown to interception ratio, 66% completion. He paired that with 382 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns. As of today, Caleb Williams is in a tier of his own in a very strong quarterback class here coming out of 2024. Let's pivot here and talk about wide receiver with our next selection. It's going to be Jameson Williams, member of the 2022 rookie class out of Alabama, currently with the Detroit Lions. Now, y'all, I'm not going to lie. This is all projection, all right? This is me loving J-Mo's profile coming out, the speed, the handwork, the route running ability, and Jameson Williams showed us some really nice flashes there in Detroit. So this is a little bit of a projection, but it's one that I'm willing to make. Right after him is going to be Jordan Addison, the wide receiver out of USC. Jordan Addison here sneaks in to this first round. We love Jordan Addison in terms of his floor. He can separate at all three levels. He can stretch the field nicely. I think there's a good amount of scheme versatility here. Really impressive that Jordan Addison led USC in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns in his first year in the scheme. I think that shows coachability, and that shows he's able to quickly learn an offense, which could mean a quick translation to the NFL. Now, before a big Devy run, we're going to sneak in one more member of the 2023 class, and that is going to be CJ Stroud. He's definitely a tier below Bryce Young and even Caleb Williams at this point, but CJ Stroud has all of the traits that you need. You got the big arm, you have the mobility. It's going to be a question of, can he put them together? Can he get coached up? Nonetheless, he does still deserve to be talked about here in that, top group of guys in this simulation. But we're going to have a little bit of a Devy run here. So if you're not as familiar with the class, let's buckle up. I'm going to drop some knowledge here for you, starting with TreVeyon Henderson, the running back out of Ohio State. TreVeyon Henderson, 5'10", 210, 1,248 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns as a true freshman for the Ohio State Buckeyes. That was in the 2021 season. In 2022, the numbers weren't as strong. It came out that Henderson was battling through a lower body injury for a while. Finally, he shut it down. We're expecting that he's going to come back healthy. He's going to be another high producer, early producer, and he's going to have the size that the NFL loves. Henderson's going to have a shot at being a first-round NFL draft selection next year, and if he does, of course, his fantasy football value will skyrocket along with it. I referenced this guy earlier, but now it's time to dig into Emeka Egbuka, a wide receiver here out of Ohio State. Egbuka, 6'1", 203. He comes in with nice size, 74 receptions, 1,151 receiving yards, and 10 touchdowns for Ohio State. Egbuka, very athletic. All right, he's able to win deep downfield. He plays with good speed. He plays with consistent hands. A lot of times folks get caught up. All right, we're seeing a lot of good players coming from the same college, Ohio State. Do they really have all these good wide receivers, or is it the scheme? It's the wide receivers. They're recruiting high-level wideouts, and they're coaching them up. Brian Hartline, the coach at Ohio State, the wide receiver coach who's been recruiting these guys, coming in, training them up, actually just got promoted to offensive coordinator because he's doing such a good job. He was such a hot candidate around the country. They had to promote him, and he's going to continue working with Egbuka as long with Marvin Harrison Jr., keep coaching up these guys. And just like there was room for both Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave to be dynamic at the next level, there's absolutely opportunity for Egbuka and Marvin Harrison to both tear it up in the NFL. One more Devy guy, then we're going to pivot a little bit here, but we have to talk about UNC quarterback Drake Maye. Drake Maye coming in at 6'5", 220, a dual threat playmaker here. He can run with his legs, but he's also a precise passer, and he's got good command of his offense here. 4,321 passing yards, 38 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, 66% completion, 698 yards on the ground, along with 7 touchdowns. All the way up until the end of the season, Drake Maye was considered a candidate for the Heisman. Fell off a little bit at the end here, but definitely was still one of the top 10 players in the country overall last season. 205, it's going to be Christian Watson. So we're going back to the 2022 wide receiver class. 7 touchdowns on 61 targets as a rookie. Here's the best part. Here's what I love about Christian Watson. He's not a final product. Christian Watson is ahead of schedule. Coming out of North Dakota, we knew he was going to be raw, but we knew he had the athleticism and the pass catching ability. And he paired that up here with some great production early on. I understand there's questions about the Green Bay quarterback position. And listen, I'm the last guy that wants somebody catching passes from Jordan Love, if that's what it comes down to. But either way, we've seen that the talent is there. The ceiling is there. And so Christian Watson definitely is worthy of this selection here at 205. 206, we're going back to the quarterbacks here in the 2023 class, and that is Anthony Richardson. Listen, Anthony Richardson, he's the right type of risk. He's got the big arm. He has next level athleticism. All right, calling him a dual threat passer would be a disservice to his athleticism. He's fast, he's elusive, and he's physical. All right. Now, that's just on the ground. So he has excellent potential as a rusher, but he has improved passing ability. Okay, I understand his mechanics aren't there yet, but if you watch 2021 film to 2022 film, the mechanics are definitely improved, and that's what I'm looking for in a quarterback prospect. Every quarterback is a risk at the next level, so it's going to be a matter of his system that he falls in, the coaching that he receives, and the time that they give him to develop into a high-level NFL quarterback. If Anthony Richardson had gone back to Florida for another year, he'd had the potential to be the #1 overall selection in the 2024 draft class. 207 here is Will Shipley. He's one of my favorite underrated Devy guys. I do think folks started to catch on after last season, but quite frankly, you should have caught on after his true freshman season if you're somebody consistently watching on Saturdays. If you're not, let me break him down a little bit for you. 5'11", 210. He's a great runner and a great pass catcher. If you follow my work, you know I get excited when the running backs have good pass catching ability because that's just going to exponentially grow their fantasy football potential. 1,921 rushing yards and 26 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons at Clemson. And Shipley played as a true freshman for the Tigers. Dabo is not somebody who is quick to throw true freshmen on the field, but he earned that distinction in that honor to play very quickly. In 2022, just 2022, he had 38 receptions for 242 yards in an offense that, folks, quite frankly, was broken. Will Shipley really was that offense, both on the ground and through the air. He's a really exciting player. 208, back to the 2022 class, it's going to be Jahan Dotson. Wide receiver 42 in points per game last year, 7 touchdowns on 61 targets. With an improved quarterback game, hopefully coming in Washington, there's opportunity for Jahan Dotson's fantasy stock to continue to grow and grow and grow. Back to the 2024 class, it's Brock Bowers, the tight end out of Georgia. The only tight end we're talking about here on this show. 6'4", 230, 1,824 receiving yards, 13 touchdowns for the Bulldogs as a true freshman. In 2022, he led the team in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns as a tight end. Brock Bowers is a man amongst boys, catching the ball, working after the catch. He even had an 84-yard touchdown run this season. Ridiculous athleticism, ridiculous pass catching ability, and he's a physical monster. So you could have put Brock Bowers early second round. You could have sold me on it here, but there's so much talent we're talking about in this mock draft. All right, 210, Braelon Allen, the running back out of Wisconsin. I feel like we just forget about Braelon Allen, which we absolutely should not be doing. The running back out of Wisconsin here put up back-to-back 1,200-yard seasons again as a true freshman and true sophomore for the Badgers. He's coming in at 6'2", 238, and he runs fast and he runs hard for 6'2", 238 here. 23 touchdowns. He's absolutely a threat in the red zone here. 211, back to the 2023 class. We're going to be talking about Zach Evans here. Zach Evans has massive upside. I know some folks have questions about his vision, but we're talking about a former 5-star athlete. I think he's going to go to the combine. He's going to test really well. I think he's locked into being a day 2 NFL draft selection, despite some wavering I'm hearing among consensus for fantasy analysts here. So that's 3 running backs that we've talked about here in the context of everybody else. That's a really strong group here for the 2023 class relative, again, to 2022, who produced 2 great running backs for us. 212, I'm sneaking in Treylon Burks here. All right, there's question marks, certainly, but he did perform well in the games where he got targets. Go back and look. The games where he got 6-7 targets, Treylon Burks was productive. So we need that offense to click into rhythm. We need him to get touchdowns. That was really what stopped him from being really any fantasy relevant this year, was the touchdowns for Treylon Burks, but certainly still has the upside, and I felt that he deserved to sneak into this. So as a recap here, quarterbacks, plenty strong in the 2023 class, but not as strong as 2024. If you're talking about running backs, the 2023 class is going to likely exceed the 2022 or the 2024 class. Although I like the 2024 group, we're talking about Bijan at the top is clearly and far away the best player that we've talked about. So I think he's going to carry the running back position here in terms of this mock draft. Now, wide receivers, it was always going to be difficult to beat the 2022 class. But remember, we didn't like the 2022 class. And I'm using a large case we, because I did, but consensus did not appreciate it. But clearly going through this mock draft, they performed well and they performed early. So there's going to be talent in 2023 as well. And I think it will actually eke out the 2024 class. Only one tight end we discussed, that was Brock Bowers, that was in the 2024 class. I do think Michael Mayer, Darnell Washington, Dalton Kincaid, and Luke Musgrave are certainly going to dominate the options that we had coming out of the 2022 class. So overall, folks, the verdict is it's looking strong for the 2023 class. We can be excited about 2024 without passing past 2023. We can enjoy 3 great draft class and just keep your pick values in context here. They're valuable. If your league mates are selling them, you should be buying them. And hopefully this mock draft helped you understand the context of your picks in the context of the current dynasty value and looking forward here to next year's class.